"Sir, I don't have time for games. Let the real doctors handle this." A sharp breath. A desperate wheeze. The collapsed passenger clutches his chest, his body trembling. Every second matters. Dr. Elijah Carter steps forward, voice steady but urgent. "I'm a doctor. Let me—" Megan's hand shoots up, stopping him mid-sentence. "Step back." Her eyes scan him, skeptical. A black man claiming to be a doctor? Unlikely. Elijah's pulse spikes. This again. The passenger gasps, his condition worsening. But Megan doesn't budge. "Ma'am, he's struggling to breathe." Megan barely glances at the convulsing man. "Sir, I said we have this under control." Elijah exhales slowly, frustration simmering beneath his composed exterior. But before he can argue, a murmur spreads through the cabin. Passengers exchange uneasy glances. Some whisper, others simply stare. A woman in first class tightens her grip on her purse. A man leans toward his wife, murmuring, "Why is he pretending?" Elijah stands still, absorbing their doubt like a heavy fog. He's been here before, misjudged, dismissed, but it never gets easier. A young girl tugs at her mother's sleeve. "Mom, why won't they let him help?" The mother hushes her. Even children can see the injustice. Elijah swallows hard. Stay calm, stay professional. A new voice suddenly cuts through the tension, shifting everyone's focus. Male's voice. "I'm a doctor." Heads turn. A white man in his 50s rises, adjusting his glasses. Megan's expression softens instantly. "Oh, thank you, sir." She steps aside without hesitation. Elijah watches as the man kneels beside the passenger. No questions, no skepticism, just trust. The doctor hesitates, fumbling with the man's wrist. He's unsure. Elijah clenches his jaw. He knows this man isn't an emergency specialist. But Megan doesn't care. His skin color is his qualification. The passenger shudders, his breathing growing more erratic. The so-called savior hesitates, clearly out of his depth. Elijah takes a measured breath. If no one else will step up, he will. The passenger jerks, his body convulsing. His lips turn blue. Elijah's chest tightens. It's happening. He's slipping away. The white doctor looks up, eyes wide. I think he needs immediate airway support." Elijah's voice cuts through the tension. Megan whips around. "I said we have this handled." Elijah doesn't move. "Handled? He's dying." A murmur spreads through the crowd. Passengers shift uncomfortably. Megan's jaw tightens. Her authority is slipping and she knows it. Elijah forces himself to stay calm. Push too hard and they'll call security. Stay silent, and this man won't survive. The decision is no longer Megan's to make. A concerned passenger speaks up, forcing the moment toward an unavoidable turning point. Voice from the crowd. "Why won't you let him help?" Megan flinches. Another flight attendant leans in, whispering. Megan's face pales. The captain has been informed. Elijah watches her grip tighten on her tablet. The moment she's fought to control is slipping away. Everything is about to change. Dr. Elijah Carter barely glances at his boarding pass as he settles into his seat. Just another flight home. A familiar voice drifts from the front. An attendant explaining emergency procedures. He knows the script by heart. He wrote it. Harvard trained. The airline's chief medical officer. The one who teaches flight crews how to handle medical crises. But right now, he's just another passenger. Just another black man in first class. He exhales. It's always there. The unspoken doubt, the unasked questions. For once, he lets it go. Not tonight. But fate has other plans. Elijah learned early that excellence wasn't enough. "You must be the janitor," the surgeon had said once, handing him a mop. Dr. Elijah Carter, M.D., Harvard. The badge had been right there. But that didn't matter. Patients looked past him, searching for someone else. Professors questioned his presence at an Ivy League school. Store security followed him like a shadow. Every moment a silent test. And he passed. Again and again. Not with words, but with action, with skill. Now, at the top of his field, he should feel untouchable. but experience tells him otherwise. It doesn't matter how many degrees are behind his name. Some people will only ever see his skin. And tonight, at 35,000 feet, that truth is about to slap him in the face. The pilot's voice hums over the speakers. Elijah barely listens. For once, his mind isn't on work. Just a few quiet hours before home. He watches the attendants move through their safety checks. He's trained so many just like them. Then, a sharp gasp, a commotion. A body slumps forward. Instinct kicks in before thought. But as he unbuckles his seatbelt, he hesitates, because he knows how this goes. The question, the disbelief, the humiliation. He sighs and stands anyway, and right on cue, "Sir, please stay seated." Here we go again. This isn't a whispered slight in a hospital hallway. This is public. A full plane watching. Megan, the flight attendant, doesn't ask who he is. I don't care. She sees him, assumes, dismisses. But this time there are too many eyes. Too many ears. This time she won't get away with it. "Sir, step aside." Elijah stops mid-step, his medical instincts momentarily colliding with something colder, familiar resistance. Megan stands firm, arms crossed, her expression tight with doubt. "Let the real doctors handle this," she snaps, blocking his way. The words hit harder than they should. Years of training, endless nights in the ER, countless lives saved, and still, he's a question mark. "I am a doctor," Elijah says evenly. "Let me help." Megan's lips twitch with skepticism. "And where exactly did you get your degree?" A chuckle ripples through a few passengers. Elijah exhales slowly, jaw tight. He's been here before. Different setting, same script. This isn't about credentials. It never is. A murmur spreads through the cabin. Why would he even need to lie? A man whispers to his wife, glancing at Elijah. Passengers shift uncomfortably. Some nod, others hesitate. The question lingers, unspoken yet suffocating. Could he really be a doctor? Elijah feels the weight of their stares. It's always the same, doubt before belief. He could pull out his ID, flash his credentials. Would it even matter? Would they assume he forged them? That he took someone else's spot? The patient groans, their condition worsening. Elijah pushes aside his frustration. Focus. "I need to assess them now," he says, voice steady. Megan doesn't budge. The white doctor Megan immediately trusted is sweating now, fumbling with his equipment. His hands shake as he attempts to check the patient's vitals. He hesitates, glancing at Megan, uncertainty flickering across his face. She doesn't notice. Her focus remains on Elijah, as if he's the threat. Elijah clenches his fists, frustration simmering. He knows what to do. He's done it 100 times. Passengers begin to shift in their seats, exchanging glances. They sense it. Something isn't right. One woman whispers, "Maybe he should let the other doctor try." Megan straightens, clearing her throat. Then she delivers the final blow. Megan's voice cuts through the cabin. "If there are any certified medical professionals on board, qualified ones, please identify yourself." The emphasis stings like a slap. Elijah stands frozen, the humiliation settling deep in his chest. She isn't just doubting him, she's making a spectacle of it. A few passengers look away, uncomfortable. The white doctor hesitates, shifting slightly toward Elijah, but says nothing. For a fleeting moment, Elijah considers stepping back. Why keep fighting? Then, a sharp gasp from the patient, a shuddering breath, a tightening grip on the armrest. Time is running out. Elijah takes a step forward. "Enough," he says firmly. This time, he's not asking. The patient lets out a sharp wheeze, his chest rising and falling in erratic, shallow breaths. The white doctor fumbles with the medical kit, flipping through supplies as if hoping the right tool will jump into his hands. His fingers tremble. He's out of his depth. Passengers shift in their seats, murmurs growing louder. They can see it. Megan's jaw tightens. Her gaze flicks between the struggling doctor and Elijah, hesitation flickering in her eyes. But then, her expression hardens. She won't back down. Pride? Bias? It doesn't matter. She refuses to admit she was wrong. A young man in the third row pulls out his phone, tapping record. The world needs to see this. Elijah stays silent, watching the scene unfold, waiting for the moment when the truth becomes undeniable. And it comes sooner than expected. Elijah steps forward, voice measured but firm. "If you don't let me help, this man may die." Megan exhales sharply, rolling her eyes. "Oh, please, just sit down, sir." The words cut, not just because of their arrogance, but because of their audacity. A man's life is at stake, and she's treating this like an inconvenience. Passengers exchange nervous glances. They see it now. The tension is no longer just beneath the surface. It's thick, suffocating. The patient lets out a ragged cough, his breath weakening. The doctor wipes sweat from his forehead, shaking his head. He doesn't know what to do. Elijah clenches his jaw. This isn't about him, it's about saving a life. "I've handled cases like this before," he says, his voice unwavering. "You need to let me through." Megan doesn't even look at him. She still won't listen. And then the patient's body goes limp. A sharp gasp spreads through the cabin. "He's unconscious," someone cries. Passengers lurch forward in their seats, panic rising. The doctor pales, hands frozen over the patient's chest. He looks at Megan, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't have the right equipment knowledge for this." Megan stiffens. For the first time, doubt creeps into her features. Elijah doesn't hesitate. "Move, now." He steps forward, his entire body wired with urgency. This is no longer a debate. A man is dying. But before he can reach the patient, Megan throws up her hand. "Security!" A stunned silence. Passengers gape in disbelief. Someone mutters, "Is she serious?" Two uniformed flight officers start moving down the aisle toward Elijah. Elijah stares at Megan, his heart pounding, not with fear, but with rage. Years of this, fighting to be seen, to be heard, to be believed. Now, in the face of undeniable proof, she's still willing to let a man die, just to be right. Then, a voice cuts through the chaos. "Wait." A middle-aged man in business attire pushes out of his seat. "He's a doctor. What are you doing?" Megan's lips press together, but the murmurs are growing. She wouldn't even listen to him. That other doctor had no clue what he was doing. Is she really stopping him from helping? The flight security officer's slow, looking uncertain. Elijah's fingers curl into his palms. The weight of every battle, every time he's had to prove himself twice as hard, it all tightens around his chest. And yet, the patient still lies there, unmoving. Megan crosses her arms, doubling down. Even now, she refuses to admit she's wrong. Elijah exhales sharply. This isn't about pride. This is about saving a life. A tense pause. Then, the intercom crackles to life. The deep, authoritative voice of the captain echoes through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have received word that there is a qualified medical professional on board. Dr. Elijah Carter, please proceed immediately." The cabin falls into absolute silence. Megan's face goes pale. Everything has changed. The intercom crackles, then the voice of authority. "Dr. Elijah Carter, report to the cockpit immediately." Silence crashes over the cabin. Megan's lips part, but no words come. The color drains from her face. Passengers whisper among themselves, eyes darting between Elijah and the flight attendants. Did he say, "Doctor"? Wait, Carter? That's him? He tried to help. She shut him down. The weight of undeniable truth settles over everyone. The security officers hesitate. Megan stiffens, hands clenched at her sides. For the first time, she doesn't hold the power. Elijah exhales slowly. He never needed validation. But now the entire plane sees the truth. And Megan, she has nowhere to hide. Then, footsteps approach. The captain himself steps out of the cockpit, a tablet in hand. And the final blow is a boat to land. The captain clears his throat. His voice is steady, deliberate. "Dr. Elijah Carter," he begins, scanning the screen. "Harvard Medical School graduate. Board-certified emergency physician. Chief Medical Officer for this airline. Gasps ripple through the cabin. Megan stares, her mouth opening and closing, grasping for an excuse, but there isn't one. The male doctor, still standing near the patient, lowers his gaze. The shame is unmistakable. "You ignored our own medical chief?" A woman in first class hisses. A murmur of outrage spreads. Elijah, stoic as ever, steps forward. "Let me do my job." The captain nods, stepping aside. Megan swallows hard. This is the moment she could apologize. Admit she was wrong. But pride is a heavy thing, and instead, she says nothing. She simply watches as the man she dismissed steps in to save a life. Elijah kneels beside the unconscious passenger, his hands steady. No hesitation, no doubt. He checks for a pulse. Faint, but there. Passengers lean forward, holding their breath. Elijah speaks calmly. "He's in hypoxia, lack of oxygen. I need supplemental O2 and a bag valve mask." The flight attendant scrambles, placing supplies in his hands. Now, real treatment begins. The male doctor lingers, silent. Then, he steps back. He knows who the real expert is. Elijah works efficiently, adjusting the patient's airway, administering oxygen. Seconds stretch into minutes, then a twitch of the fingers. A slow inhale. The passenger stirs. Relief crashes through the crowd. He's breathing again. A woman wipes away tears. A man exhales like he's been holding his breath for hours. But Elijah, he doesn't celebrate. He just watches, making sure the patient stabilizes, because this was never about proving anything. Megan stands frozen, waiting. Waiting for Elijah to turn to her, to call her out, to demand an apology. She deserves it. But he doesn't. He doesn't spare her a glance. Doesn't waste his breath. Because he doesn't need to. The silence is louder than any accusation. Louder than any punishment. Passengers erupt into applause, but Elijah barely reacts. He exhales, shoulders heavy with exhaustion. Because this wasn't a victory. It was survival. Megan swallows hard, the weight of her actions settling in, and for the first time she truly feels the shame. The captain's voice is sharp, unforgiving. "Step aside, Megan, now." She flinches. The entire crew is watching. Passengers too. "You ignored protocol, dismissed a qualified physician, put a passenger at risk." His eyes narrow. There's no excuse. Her breath hitches. I didn't realize." "No," he cuts her off. "You didn't listen." A flight attendant shifts uncomfortably nearby. No one is coming to her defense. "You're suspended," the captain states. "Pending investigation." Megan opens her mouth, but no words come. Because what argument is left? Passengers murmur. Phones are out, recording everything. Her authority, her confidence, all of it crumbles. For the first time, Megan feels what Elijah felt. Dismissed, powerless. And he doesn't even have to say a word. The silence lingers long after Megan steps away. Then, a hesitant voice. "Elijah, A flight attendant clears his throat. "I should have spoken up." Another one steps forward, nodding. "We all should have." One by one, they acknowledge their mistake, not just to him, but to the truth. Elijah listens, exhaustion settling deep in his bones. "I appreciate it," he says, voice steady. "But this was never about me." The words sink in. Because they know he's right, their failure wasn't just a personal insult. It nearly cost a life. And no apology can undo that. The passenger stirs, blinks, breathes. Confusion flickers in his eyes. "What happened?" Elijah kneels beside him. "You had trouble breathing. Oxygen levels dropped." The man exhales shakily. "You saved me." Elijah nods. It's what he does. A pause. Then a heartfelt, "Thank you." He has no idea what just happened. No idea about the power struggle, the injustice. To him, Elijah is simply a doctor who saved his life. And that's all Elijah ever wanted to be. But the world is about to see everything. A notification pings, then another, and another. Somewhere in the cabin, a video uploads, Megan's dismissal, Elijah's credentials, the confrontation. Within hours, it's everywhere. Hashtags trend, trust black doctors, do better, Elijah Carter, EED. The airline issues a statement. We deeply regret, but it's not enough, because the truth is out. Megan, gone, fired, and Elijah? He never asked for any of this. But now, the conversation is bigger than him. Much bigger. Reporters reach out. Offers flood in. Elijah steps forward. Not for fame, not for revenge, for change. This isn't about me, he says. It's about every black professional who's been doubted, dismissed, and disrespected. We don't need validation. We need opportunity. The world listens, and the fight continues. Have you ever witnessed discrimination like this? How did you react? Did you speak up? Or did silence feel safer? Share your story in the comments. Your experience matters. Let's expose the biases that go unnoticed every day. Let's start the conversation, together. Change begins with awareness. Your voice has power. By sharing your experiences, you help others see the reality of racial bias. Drop a comment, support each other. Let's make a difference. Don't let this message fade. Like, subscribe, and share. The more people see this, the harder it is to ignore. Stand against discrimination. Amplify the truth. Spread awareness. Let's fight for equality. Together.